If you'd like to participate in the discussion or leave us feedback, you can contact us at levelupyourgamingpodcast@gmail.com or find us on Facebook at facebook.com/levelupyourgaming. If you like the content and want to hear more of the show, subscribing will ensure you don't miss an episode. New episodes come out almost every Wednesday. Also, please review, tell a friend about the podcast, or share with your gaming group. Now sit back and enjoy the episode.
Welcome to Level Up Your Gaming Podcast, where we discuss the various ways to make your tabletop role-playing experience better, either for your players or for you as the game master. Hi, this is Josh. This week, I'm joined by my good friend, John, who is coming to us all the way virtually from Ohio. How you doing, John?
I'm doing all right. I'm in Ohio, so yeah, you start off at like a max of 7, so just take it as it is.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's good to have you. And I thought it would be fun to talk specifically with you about a couple of topics relating to role-playing, tabletop gaming. Specifically, and first of all, I want to point out that the rest of you're a member of the Tuesday crew that we get together and we do those games. You recently went through the Cyberpunk game with me. We've done D&D games, and we're currently in a game that Ken is running, right?
Yep.
And none of this would be possible if it wasn't for, virtual tabletops and things like Discord or any other community talking, chatting system. So
Very true.
I'm really happy that we have these tools available to us, and I thought we could talk about some of those. What do you think?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Excellent.
I'm a nerd who does not know when to shut up, so I can have an opinion on anything. So I'll try to keep it balanced.
Fantastic. Love that. I would like to get our listeners just a little bit of history of your gaming. As far as, I know you, I've known you for over 20 years now. I remember that we did play some 3.5 ed in your basement.
Mm-hmm.
Who ran that?
It changed around a lot. Derek was the DM when we started. It was pretty much Derek, and Ken was like his. Was mostly run by Ken, but Derek was the actual DM, and then I believe Kevin put down his wizard hat for a minute and put on his DM hat, and he hosted a game for a while, but I'm not even sure if we ever finished that one.
Yeah, it was all over the place. That's probably why I don't remember who was running it, because every time I'd show up, it was somebody else. So, what has been your experience with tabletop gaming? Like, how have you been gaming for? I know you were gaming back then, but did you game before that?
Yeah, I first played D&D. I think it was advanced D&D. That would have been 30-something years ago. I was probably 11 or 12 years old. And it was in a friend's basement, and he didn't even crack the books. He just explained the game, and we played based on pure role-playing. He told us what items we had and what was happening, and then he only had one D20 for a group of like 6 of us. We just handed it around. So anytime somebody had anything to do, he'd just say, roll the D20. And pretty much if you got over 10, you succeeded. Under 10, you failed. And a little bit of leeway based on what kind of character you were once we got into it. And didn't even know we were playing Dungeons & Dragons till probably like the 3rd time we played. So most of it, though, was all video games for growing up. But until I started up with our most recent group that we play, our Tuesday night one, I had never played anything but just vanilla D&D tabletop for 30 years. It's the only thing we ever did. I mean, I knew the other platforms and different games and systems existed, but never. Yeah, I was just either busy, never around, and then I moved. So it's really hard to jump into a game when you're hundreds of miles away from somebody.
Yeah, it is. It's difficult to jump into games when you're 10 minutes away from somebody because our schedules just suck. But I'm really glad that you were able to join our group, and I've been having a great time playing with you for the past Oh God, has it been like 2 years now that we've been doing this?
Probably closer to 3 because I was
3? Oh, geez.
about 2.5, 3 years. Kevin called me up, and I think it was Artie had some issues, possibly some finger issues. I don't remember, but and she had to drop out, and Kevin called me up, and I was sitting at the flea market waiting for Kat to come out, and Kevin comes up and says, "Hey, John." I'm like, "Wow, that's funny. You've never actually called me." Like, we've been friends since we were like, well, again, 12 or 13 years old. But I'm like, I don't know if you've ever actually reached out to me. So this has got to be good. Lay it on me. And he's like, "Oh, what do you do on Tuesday nights?" I'm like, "I live in Ohio. I don't do anything on any night." And he's like, "Cool. You're going to play some D&D with us." Fantastic. And I knew everybody in the game except Pat, so it worked out.
Yeah. Yeah, it was, we had a little problem with keeping Artie around. He kept having other things he had to disappear off to. And the suggestion to bring you in came about, and I think everybody was really happy with the idea. So we had Kevin reach out because we figured you'd be most likely to answer his call.
Fair enough. I know. I mean, I've never. If I did burn bridges with anybody, nobody ever told me I was burning them. So,
No, you just left for Ohio. It's just weird.
Right, and that was that. But no, it's good.
No, good.
I think I'm better in small doses, especially from far away. So,
well, I'm going to be testing that later this month. I'm coming out to see you.
right.
So,
Nice.
My next question: have you ever run a game?
I do run a game out here in Ohio. I have run one internally with my family, my wife, my kid, sometimes some of my kids' friends and stuff like that. But it's based on D&D. Everyone gets to make their character and everything else. But the rules are very fast and loose. I do not. If you have to reference anything for more than 10 seconds, you're going to lose the attention of the kids and you lose them. So if I don't know something within 10 seconds, I just make a judgment call, roll a dice, and let people know what happened. And so far, they're generally happy with the way things work. However, we've only done 2 sessions so far, hosting a game here in my house in Sandusky, and it has been mixed. We really get along with the people. One of them had a nervous breakdown, and the other one got COVID, and so it's it's been a mess, and I'm assuming that just comes with the territory of the game. But it does. At this point, I finally got my chance to shine, and it went down the hole really quick. But we're going to pick it back up next week and try again. Other than that, no, I have. I think I like guessed DM'd a few, and I think I did a one-off with you guys one night, but that was more of a storytelling game, less of a. There was not a lot in the way of mechanics. It was more of just a let's see how people do. So that worked out. Other than that, no, I'm more of a support person in the background.
Hey,
I'll go along with whatever the DM needs.
Yeah, we need people to play the game and to run the game. I'm happy to run games, but I do like playing every now and then. And if you're happy to play the games, awesome, more power. So you said that the first game you played, that original Advanced Dungeons & Dragons when you were like 12, didn't crack a book. I'm assuming no character sheets, probably no battle maps or anything, right?
Actually, we had what was it called? I think it was just called like Dungeon Master or something like that. It was some really generic game that came in a box, and you had you were a fighter, a wizard, or whatever, and it was total knockoff of everything at the time. But we used the little cardboard cutouts that it came with, and then made copies of them and used those. So that was the limit of it. And it wasn't until much later we had a character sheet, and that was just to keep track of. There was one sheet for everybody to keep track of like money and supplies.
Are you talking about like Heroes Quest?
It wasn't even Heroes Quest. It was like a compendium to a game that came out in like early 80s.
That's crazy.
And again, there was only like the 3, and it kind of reminded me of Gauntlet, but where there was like everyone had the exact same thing. They just had different pictures. One was slightly faster, and one was slightly stronger, like all the good Nintendo games were. So
yeah, And the games that you've run out in Ohio, you're doing them in person,
Yes.
right? With doing them in person, you give either battle maps or you draw like a little outline on the table and people move their minifigs. Or I've seen Legos, and I love doing the little Lego sets. Little side note: apparently, those little blind bags that Lego puts out of the minifigs, they're doing a set of D&D minifigs. So you can go and buy a Lego like little plastic bag at the Walmart checkout, right?
Aww.
And you open it up and you don't know what it is until it opens up, and then you get a character. And I think like when I actually see them in the store, I'm going to buy like a handful of them. And I would love to just sit and hand out unopened bags to people and like, okay, today's game, open your bag, that's your character.
You get to make up a little backstory for it, and you get to do what you got to do. But you're playing whatever it is that comes out of that bag.
Exactly. That sounds fun. You're like, you come out, you got a bow and arrow. That's what you got. You come out, and you're some sort of like, a gnomish barbarian. That's what you're doing. That's just how it's going to be. It's going to be fun. So I'm looking for that. I think that's going to be great.
Those are the kind of ideas I like.
So since we've been playing online on Tuesday nights, we don't have a table in front of us, no pen and paper, because once again, you're in Ohio and the rest of us are here in Illinois. But even then, I've only met like Pat 1 or 2 times, and getting DJ and Kevin and Ken and me in the same room at the same time is also extremely difficult. So we've been playing online, and as dear readers, dear listeners, you may have heard, we're using Discord to talk. But we've used a couple of different VTTs, or virtual tabletops, and I thought I might like to get your opinion on them as a player. I've got my opinions as a game master on some of these different systems. First is Roll20. Most of our games have been done through Roll20. You've got all of Kevin's games, Ken's game that he's currently running, and DJ's wacky history games. They've all been run through Roll20.
Yeah.
What's your opinion on that?
I like that it's compatible with so much. Not only like directly compatible for character-wise, but also almost you can feed it anything you want. Here's some generic data. Here's some generic characters. Here's anything you want. And the DM can just throw stuff on the screen and have it pop up for everyone. Nice and simple. The maps are just, again, you can have it as simple as just a picture overlay, and you move your pieces around it and hope for the best. And you can get as complicated as Fog of War and the Darkness and whatnot. I do like how it's going to sound strange, but how bright it is. I don't see well, and there are certain things. Even when we have a dark map in Roll20, it just seems brighter. It's easier for me to see because I can zoom in as much or little as I want, and I can adjust everything for myself as I need it. And worst case scenario, I ask the DM, "Hey, can you brighten it up a little bit or point out where I'm at?" But I've never had a problem in Roll20 where we're playing a game, and I have to ask the person like, "Hey, what's on the screen? Like, there's a bad guy? Where?" And they have to ping it for me and things like in what we play in not Fantasy Grounds.
That's Foundry is the one that I'm doing
Foundry,
recently.
yeah.
But Fantasy Grounds was a problem.
That was another one that's where it's dark, and I'm like, "What's going on?" And it's like, again, there's no that can all be accounted for, and I mean, it can all be compensated for by just making whatever changes you need to the making sure your token has a good contrast or whatever. But when you're completely colorblind like I am, and you have just poor vision, it's something like Foundry. You find, as you know, me asking, "Hey," a couple times a game, like, "Okay, I'm going in this room. I know we're fighting some people. Which ones are the bad guys?" Because to me, it's just a blur of little tiny squares, and it's great. I really just I don't have that as much with with Roll20 in general, because it's just it's not cluttered. It's literally just the picture of all your little icons moving around, and then everything in one little thing on the right side. Yeah, I might need to switch to a different tab to look at a character sheet or to do some advanced rolling or something like that. But it all just comes back to being, here's a big picture, and it is what it is. And so that's what I like about Roll20. On the opposing side, it kind of seems like like you're thrown to the wolves type of thing. It's as much or as little as you want to make out of it, which of course can be said about any of these BTTs. But I think Roll20 it seems like it's one of the staples kind of thing. Like it's a fallback, and it's integrated with so much stuff. Like you got your D&D Beyond that integrates with Roll20 and back and forth and vice versa. And I know most of these integrate with each other, but it seems like if you don't at least integrate with Roll20 or one of those, then you're missing out on a great resource.
So, of the VTTs that we've worked with, it's your favorite?
It's my favorite for being a player.
Okay.
There is lots of swearing when setting up games. Here's the thing: when you D&D'd it, we were great because you prepped a lot of maps ahead of time, and we didn't go into a game. Now, was everything perfect? No, but it was as perfect as you could make it at the time within reason. Kevin, for instance, that wasn't his go-to, but we still played on that one, and even though he knew his way around it, and he's a pretty smart guy, all things considered. Probably 3 or 4 times a night, we'd just stop and pause and wait for 20 minutes while he figured out how to make a picture show up or something. And it's not like making a picture show up is hard, but you can easily break it if you're not careful. And you can easily you can move this layer too high and it eats all the other layers. Your token could be swallowed by a pixel and you'd never know it. And you'd be sitting there, I'd be playing the game for an hour and being like, oh crap, we're actually playing? Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize that. And nobody would know it because there's it's very fast and loose with its options. So the game we played with Kevin was the same Roll20 as the game we played with you, but it was a completely different experience. So I think it really has to do with your mastery of it. Where I would say that some of the other ones, the basics of the game would be, let's say Foundry, for instance. The basics, no matter who ran it, would be it would be the same experience. And then it allowed whoever was DMing at the time to add their own little extra. So you could go above and beyond. Whereas Roll20, you didn't even get the basics until you were pretty much a master. And you were spending half the game just compensating for the game system being so open-ended. So it's very much so a framework versus an entire platform, in my opinion. But I don't know how the back end works. I just know the amount of swear words that come out of people who try to fight the back end.
We're trying to actually run it, yeah.
Yeah, you want to bend it to your will, but you're really just begging it to let you play a game once in a while.
Yeah, I think that Roll20's best feature really is the fact that it's paid for all of these pre-made things. So you can go, and just buy the D&D book and just run it through Roll20. Kevin ran 2 of those games. And as long as we were staying to the official material, the maps were fine. As soon as we went off the beaten path, it became an issue. But that could also be the fact that, Kevin works way too much and doesn't have time to prep before a lot of the game sessions. Sometimes he's running late because he's still coming home from work by the time we're ready to play. So
and that's a testament to his ability to wing it, and that's fine by me.
And that's a very important thing for any game master to really be able to do, is to be able to sort of improv or make up maps or load up new areas on the spot.
Yeah,
I tend to over prepare, so I usually have a handful of maps, even if I don't have a story for them, in case you guys ask for something.
Yeah, and hey, that's what it's all about.
So the other two systems that we ran Foundry, and Foundry is the one that I run the Cairn game, and it's the one I ran the Cyberpunk in. I like Foundry quite a bit because it's very refined. How does it feel as a player?
I do like how you can just slap open your character, have it floating there, and have, how do I put this? It's not overburdened with extra junk that doesn't have anything to do with your game. So if you have a game that has this many character slots or this many features or your attributes for your character or whatever, you just have those. You don't have to have 1,000 things. When we played the Cyberpunk one, there's like 10,000 sub features, but they were all useful. Sometimes you had to ask, sometimes it didn't make any sense, but it was still, the system allowed you to do that. Whereas in the Cairn game, there's like 4 buttons, and you're like, I like this. But that's because that's what that game is all about. And Foundry lets you do that without over encompassing it with like a weird formats or messing up the layouts and stuff like that. It's just boom, you're done. And if you haven't done it yet, there's bound to have been somebody who's done it already and has a kind of a preset layout for that game. But if they haven't, then you're still good to go.
Yeah.
So,
and then
definitely it's smooth.
It's a smooth system. It's really nice because the system, whatever you put in there, Roll20 is, the jack of all trades. It has all of the options, but sometimes all of the options aren't what you want. Foundry, it's not nearly as versatile. It doesn't have necessarily all the systems or all the integrations or all the loadouts, but the ones that it does have are really nice and clean and easy to work with. The last one, you were there for were you there for the Waterdeep game?
Yeah.
Okay. That was in Fantasy Ground. That was the system I was using before Foundry. And I like Foundry a lot better than I like Roll20, but I still like Roll20 better than I liked running a game in Fantasy Grounds.
Fantasy Grounds was
it was old.
It was complex, and it felt like you were playing, like it was like you're compiling your character, and it's in QBasic and whatnot. And it's like everything. Like, okay, I'd like to be a wizard. They're like, okay, and you feel, oh, I'm just going to roll my character sheet. Roll? No, you're going to program your character sheet. And they're going to recompile your dependencies. Fantasy Grounds is like the 1998 Linux of tabletops, and the fact that you have to, does it still require you to like download and run the client locally on your computer?
No, I don't think so. I think there might be a web version, but the last time I played it was client based, client server based. But like I think the server could be in the cloud, and you'd still need the clients to run it. I don't think that's changed actually.
Okay. Yeah, and that like you tried to resize anything, and it broke it. Like certain things. Like I am not a developer, but I work with enough developers to know certain things. When I see them, like, oh, do you think you can do better? No, I can't. But I know people who can. I know a lot of people who can. And so when you provide for me with a system that does not have dynamic resizing, where it's static, to where if I try to resize a box and my character is still in a tiny little corner in the upper left, I'm like, you're supposed to make it bigger. Or for that matter, if you have a map and you try to make it bigger, it doesn't dynamically move things out of the way. It just eats whatever's there. And if you want to do better, then you're gonna have to, like, again, recompile your version dependencies and plug your kernel on your. You shouldn't need to do that kind of stuff for a system. Now, I also believe that it has like 10,000 integrations from people for the last couple of decades. So if you wanted to play like a left-handed serial killer versus movie monster, I'm sure there's probably a system for it, and somebody has gone ahead and designed it badly 10 times. But that's kind of part of the fun. You get to kind of work with it.
I think the real benefit that I had when I was running Fantasy Grounds was as a game master, I was able to go in and actually because I am a developer, I was able to I'm going to add these new items. I'm going to add these new monsters. I'm going to add this and I'm going to add that. And you could go through and you could really meticulously lay out all the stats and functions and build things that interacted with other things and build macros to make things work. And that was great if you've got the time for it. But that's a ridiculous amount of work unless you're really into it. And then, with the inability for it to do, simple resizing, or sometimes the lighting was just it was just off. It would look perfectly fine on my system, but because it's a client server system and it's up to the cloud, I load, I've preloaded a map to you guys and you guys don't get the lighting layer for whatever dumb reason, nobody can see shit. And I've got to pull it and reload it. So
I remember that. I remember with Waterdeep, we were in the Wizard's Maze, the alley, the instance, and I didn't realize for the first 20 minutes of us playing it that you're seeing something different than I'm seeing. And not just because I'm half blind, but you're literally on a different plane of existence when it comes to the game. I'm like, what is going on? Or should we go this way or that way? I'm like, I don't think we're looking at the same thing, but I wasn't confident enough to say anything about it. And then you finally you basically did the equivalent of flipping the light switch. I'm like, oh crap, we're playing the game here. I can stop reading my book and go back to waiting for the game to load. So yeah, I'm glad that you got your flexibility out of that, because
I would love that the ability to do some of that back end programming in more of a Foundry. Foundry, you can still do some of that stuff, but because the systems are so refined, you have to do it. It's in a different format, sort of, for each different game system that you might be playing. So that's neither here nor there. How about we talk real quick, because we've been chatting here for a minute. Real quick on the different game systems that we've played, then, and get your thoughts on these. I think the big one that we've played, we've played the most games in, was Dungeons and Dragons. What are your likes and dislikes about Dungeons and Dragons as a game system, either as a player or those are the games that you've actually run it yourself?
Mostly, yeah. I like the fact that the opening line of Dungeons and Dragons in the book, and I'm paraphrasing here, it's pretty much, this game is as much or as little as you want it to be. You can follow every rule in this book perfectly, or you can make your own rules up. You can throw the rules out the window, or you can follow them to a T. You can do whatever you want, as much or as little. And I always liked that about Dungeons and Dragons. And at the same time, it's also what made it some of the worst D&D experiences I've ever had as well. Because, I don't know, if you don't find the right balance with your group, you can ostracize players, or you can even ostracize the DM. Again, for some people, D&D, or your when you get together for game night, no matter what game you're playing, that to a lot of people is the only socialization they really get. And so if you aren't careful and you don't realize it, you could be ostracizing somebody, or you could be really affecting their ability to get into the group. And D&D kind of could bridge that as long as you are careful with it. I'm not sure if you remember the people that have played in our D&D group back 20 years ago in my parents' house, basement, garage, all that stuff. But we had a football player, a jock, stoners, people who had no idea what a game was. We had other people who, didn't even know where they were half the time. We had nerds, computer of every kind, from computer nerds to gaming nerds to book nerds, and we managed to make it work because we never took it too seriously. Every now and again we allowed people to take it as seriously as they wanted to, but it was kind of very laid back. There was nobody was in a hurry to do anything. Nobody judged anybody for anything. Everyone gave everyone crap, and D&D allowed that to happen. And so it's always going to have a place in my heart to be the great unifier of whatever. Again, as long as you can play play to the audience, play to your crowd. And every game I played, with the exception of a few, have been able to do that. So D&D, beautiful. And then you get to the overcomplication sometimes, and knowing that there's like all the core rule books, which I have. I got them in hardcover. And I've got every other book you can think of too digitally. But when you're playing a game in D&D, too often does the game stop for 5-10 minutes while somebody opens up a tome and cross-references and indexes this rule with that rule, and that doesn't work with that. And well, sneak attack does work, especially on a whatever. Now that you're a level 3 rogue, you can basically take an attack of opportunity as long as the other person's like not stabbing into. And like there's 6 different ways to interpret every single rule, and if you are careful, D&D will eat your soul. So that's my thoughts on D&D. I love it. It's part of who I am, and at the same time, it's
Like
you have to be gentle with it.
Mm-hmm. A firm but gentle hand leading you through the fantasy realms.
Right.
So we've run a couple of campaigns in D&D. The only other system that we've had a complete campaign in would be Cyberpunk Red, which is the one I just finished. Regardless of the story I told you, what did you think of the system?
I loved it. It was rubbish at it, and I didn't understand half of it, and I was But any failings in that system were purely either me not having enough time when we started at the time, because I was going through a lot of crap and moving in the house and everything.
Yeah.
Or just not really meshing with certain things. We're like, oh, roll for this. Like, wait a minute, you're telling me that there's certain things that did not make sense. And I'm not saying that I would have tried to metagame if they did, but like I couldn't even think of how somebody could have possibly metagamed. They're like, okay, so I'm a guy whose sole purpose is law enforcement. I have all these extra skills with the handgun, or with guns and everything like that, and I can walk up to somebody, put the gun in their face, pull the trigger, and do like 4 damage. And then there's like somebody else who has like a sharp pointed stick, and they're drunk and stoned, and somehow do 8 times the damage I do by shooting them in the face, by poking them in the arm or something like that. I'm like, wait a minute. No, don't get me wrong. I'm sure if I knew how to power game better and I cared about min-maxing everything and making sure my character was perfectly generated, I took stats in things that I thought my character would have, not what I thought would be the best. And when you can power game in any system, I felt that in that one in Cyberpunk, like if you did not power game, there was not enough opportunity to catch up. And so you were pretty much inevitably going to either get left behind or you have to base your entire character on as much role playing as possible and roll for bullshit. And I rolled a lot of bullshit. I'd be like, hey, I'd like to do this completely unrealistic thing, and I'd give speeches about bribing people and all this other stuff. And you're like, and you went with it flawlessly. You're like, cool, roll me this. I'm like, that doesn't make damn word of sense. Like, roll for ballerina. And I would have been like, absolutely. And I'd roll for it. And you know what? If I got it, great. If I didn't, I took my chances. And that's, So you could have fun without having to power game in that, but knowing full well that if you did power game,
you could probably be a beast. I think the thing with the Cyberpunk Red is that there was so many options that you said you took things that would make sense for your character. And I really think that game is designed not with, D&D is a very combat-oriented game. You fight things. You go to dungeons, you fight things. You go to places, you fight things. There's dragons, you fight things. Cyberpunk Red was more like, we got fighting, and we got role-playing, and we got mystery, and we got, and so there's so many options. It did make it interesting to tell the story in that I tried to make something that had all the options. It sort of ran the gambit of various types of things that people could do, specifically so that each of your characters could have, your moments, but also so that each of your characters could be used. Could actually do something.
Yeah. That makes
and because it's so complicated, it makes, it was a very interesting game for the first time. I'd like to run another game in that, with, people that have played it before, so that they could be like, oh, we're going to play it in this style, and we're going to make characters that sort of fit towards that, that view, right? So you could,
Yeah.
And I think that might be fun.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're right. Yeah, that's a good point about that. And I would like to jump back into that system eventually. And probably when if we went with the exact same thing with the same like skill sets and everything for the same game system, I would probably take my time to actually go and read through some of those 300-page PDF tomes that were shared and to learn more about the story. Because these are all these games that I always heard everybody talking about. Kevin and DJ over the years, we're going to play that. Oh, they play Cyberpunk and they play Shadowrun and stuff like that. And it's like,
yeah, they're playing Shadowrun. Yeah,
they always play all these other systems, and I'm here like, anybody want to play StarCraft? There we go.
Yeah, I picked Cyberpunk over Shadowrun because Shadowrun is Cyberpunk with magic, and that just seemed like Cyberpunk's already too complicated. Let's not add magic to it. Now we've run a couple of one-shots with DJ, and he's done these mixed-up history things, where Angela Lansbury and Mr. Limpet and the Captain Crunch, and we're going up against Nazis in World War II and fighting demons. All of that was done with sort of the fate system that had those really weird dice.
Yeah, it's on my list here. Yeah.
What do you think of that?
That's probably the worst type of system for me because it's not just because the system itself was weird. Like, I don't know, we played half a dozen times, and I still can't tell you what the weird Klingon Star Wars symbol dice are. And you're like, okay, I might as well have been playing a game in Russian because we explained it many times, and I think I sort of understood towards the end. But then you guys had to be like, 2 from the bottom row, 3 from the bottom right, 1 from the upper left, and I was like, okay, because I couldn't tell what the hell was going on. And there was there was very little possibility of adjusting that for color blindness. There wasn't like, these are all this shape and these are all that shape. No, because there was like 3 different triangles and like 14 different like circles and whatnot of different colors and stars. And then you start getting to the rolls with the weird, you call it the fate system. So I spent so much time just trying to understand what I was doing that it was hard to actually get into the game itself. And again, I'm sure it's not even that complex, but it just does not, for a one-shot, to me, that just doesn't make sense. A one-shot for like a seasoned gamer, which I'm not going to say I am. I like playing games. I've been playing D&D forever, but I wouldn't say I'm a seasoned gamer of any way, shape, or form. So I don't think I would be best for those kind of one-shots. My one-shots, I require simplicity, or at least it needs to follow some kind of a framework that makes sense. I found a lot of his games made changes to things just for the sake of making changes. I think we played the Voltron test game once, and there were certain things where like, oh, well, it's actually this way instead of that way. I'm like, well, every other game system does it this way. Well, yeah, that's why we do it this way. I'm like, that's not a good answer. You changed it just to be different. And then you know what? It's your game. You're allowed to change it to whatever you want. And not necessarily him, but the people that made those one-shots that we were doing. But just changing them for the sake of changing them, I don't know, it's like the worst kind of pretentious to me. So
just arbitrary changes for the sake of being different. Yeah.
Yeah. And so while I love the one-offs, as far as like the stories go, I couldn't stay with them at all. It was very difficult to even stay awake, and not just because I'm like an hour ahead of you guys, and so by the time the night ends, it could be close to midnight, and you guys are like, oh, I guess it's late, supposedly. But I'm an old man now that feels like going and yelling at kids to get off my lawn, so I need my rest, and I especially do my rest. So DJs, I like the stories, didn't like the systems. Would have loved to have played some of his one-shots in a, I'll harp on it if I have to. I would love to play some of his one-offs in like a D20 system, and not a D Klingon squiggly star, fucking star, whatever the hell it is.
Roll
Like,
your
I'm a
squiggly
nerd.
spooge for damage.
Right? Oh shit, your squiggly spooge turned purple. Are you sure? Well, it's more of a chartreuse. Like, fuck you. When somebody makes up another color, I'm going to start stabbing people.
But chartreuse
So,
is green, so I don't know why it's purple and green. Anyway,
yeah, my
I'm
fault.
going to skip World of Darkness because we're still sort of in that, and there's a lot going on there, and that's just messed up. You were talking about simple systems for one-shots. I've run a couple of these sessions with Cairn now as one-shots. How's that?
Yeah, not going to lie. Love it. It's not the simplicity, of course, is wonderful. Not having to worry about things. Hey, John, it's your turn. Okay, I don't have to be like, oh, wait, where was I? Where am I? Who am I? And I have to stop. Like, when we're playing Ken's game, I have to stop and, like, reread the character sheet 56 times to figure out, like, what does my character... Wait a minute. That doesn't make any sense. Okay, whatever. Where in Karen, it's like, by the time it comes back around to me, I'm still with you from the last turn. I haven't had a chance to fall asleep. And so, and even if I am falling asleep, as long as there's somebody in the room with me, I know my character can reach them and click the one button it takes to attack them. And that's it. And again, if I do enough attack, great. If I don't, hooray. I'm sure if you guys wanted to in Karen, you could add a little bit more complexity to it, but that's not the point. The whole point is the simplicity, and I love it. Yes, we're using just a generic system for it, and that's fine with me, but it's the pace of it, nobody's slowing down the game. Whereas in something like in Cyberpunk, it could be my turn, and then it might not get back around to my turn for 20 minutes while like everyone's trying to do their own thing. Like, oh, you're over there doing that. No, there are no side quests in Cairn that, as far as you're concerned, there's no like let's go into a private decide what to do, or there's no wandering off and doing no. If you're in it, you're with it at a party, or in a party, and you're doing what you have to do. It's fast paced. And as a narcoleptic, I can fall asleep within minutes if I'm not kept stimulated. I take medicine that makes it so that I don't fall asleep, but it doesn't mean that my brain doesn't really, really want to shut off. When I'm sitting there while pretty much Kevin is like doing physics and figuring out formulas, and Ken is like power gaming to the 17th degree and trying to figure out every little thing. And it's like, oh, I'm sorry, you don't have enough squiggly splooges to do this. Like in Karen, it's like, cool. What did I do? I just ran into a group of people. Screw it. Hit the button. Exactly. Hit the button. Did I kill them? Did I hit them? Did I not? And you don't even care. You don't even care because you can still role play on just a faster level. If you win, great. If you lose, hey, you know what? That's almost as great. Dude throws some marbles at you and some other weird stuff, and you're like, hooray! I ran into the hallway, fell on my ass, and I actually felt it for a second. I'm like, you know what? I haven't actually had a fast-paced game like that in so long that I forgot how much fun it could be. Going down a hallway in a dungeon type environment where you don't know if there could be traps, and you're just going to take them. You're not going to be like, well, I'm going to have this guy roll for this and this for traps, and I got to calculate this to the nth degree and whatnot. You're doing all these mathematical formulas to figure out if you upset the screw it. Run down the hallway, and if your character's stupid enough to fall for a trap, that's just the way it happens. And then you fall for it, you take your damage, you shut up, it goes to the next person's turn. And you know what they're going to do? They're going to charge down the hallway with you and trip over, and you're together on the ground laughing your ass off because of some marbles in Karen. So you know what? It's a win in my book. I'm sure it would have its limitations on like world, like creating everything because you'd slowly. I can imagine you would eventually have some sort of trouble kind of keeping the whole world balanced without a framework to do it in. But honestly, I wouldn't even care if the DM just said this is because of what it is. I'm okay if they don't have to roll for 60 characters that you can't see in the background. They can just make it up, and I'll be okay with it.
I think the real benefit I'm having with Cairn is that it is so simple, but you can't have a... it's not going to turn into a campaign. For one-shots, it's great because there is no leveling, because there is no, XP or getting better. You are exactly the way that you are, the way that the character is rolled. And rolling characters is super quick. You've died. Ken has died. And I have another character for you within 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And not just here's a new character sheet. Like it's from nothing to your pictures on the screen. The character is in your inventory. You've got access to actually run your combat, everything. And I really like that, but it definitely would never be a campaign, because what are you going to do? I mean, like, I could probably come up with something, but like, I don't know.
It would be. I don't think it wasn't a campaign. It would be like a series of one-offs. It'd be like, hey, let's jump on our character. Let's say every like 3 months or something, we dedicate a week to, like, between seasons or something. We just dedicate a week to a one-off, and then we whip out our characters.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think mine was like an entertainer or something like that, which you don't care about. You could if you really wanted to, maybe because you're an entertainer, you could do whatever. And then that guy died and you gave me a character as a butcher. Like, whatever. He's got a cowboy hat. Don't care. He's awesome. And so just, it is what it is. And I wouldn't need it to be like, oh, what is my spiritual journey as a character? It's like, no, let's whip out like McChucklenuts and the whatever crew and just jump in there and see what happens. Nobody would. It's not taken seriously, and I just don't have the energy anymore to take too many things seriously.
Well, I'm glad you're liking it. I think we're going to round this whole thing off because you've given us like a lot of good information about systems, about VTTs. You've got a lot of history in games. From a player standpoint, I really appreciate hearing these things because it helps me, this is what's good and that's what's not good. Here's where I can focus on making things better, especially for the people that play in my games. I want to make it a better game, right?
Or kill us.
Or kill you. That's a better game for me. That just keeps me interested. Is just murdering all of you repeatedly.
I've made my own game out of it where I try to determine at what point in any of your campaigns that you've decided we all need to die. And I'm not. I'd say I'm about 60 or 70% of the way there towards figuring out your tells. Not poker, not bluffing, no, murder. It's like you have murder tells, and I'm trying to figure them out. One day I'll have them all down pat, and I'll let you know if you can change them. But yeah, sorry.
Fantastic.
I didn't mean to interrupt there, but
no.
Your murder tells are fantastic.
So let's just round this off. What do you like most in a game? Let's go with story. What sort of story do you like?
I like a story that is loose. It doesn't need to be open-ended. There could be guidelines to it, but there has to be multiple ways of doing things. You can't be punished for thinking outside the box. I mean, obviously, if you try to do something ridiculous and like, oh, you approach the old manor and you're supposed to go to the front door and like talk to them about rescuing whoever, and you're like, oh, I'm going to try to climb into the upstairs window instead and break it. Like, if there's no reason to do something in the story, then yeah, you should be punished for that, or at least restricted. But otherwise, a story needs to have the allowance of people and what their characters would do really be able to kind of flow into it. They need to be able to fill out their roles in that story, and if they can't, then it's going to get limited. People are going to get bored. They're like, this isn't fun. This is you telling a story and having me roll dice to see if I win at your story. It's like, it should be everybody's story. And you should just be kind of guiding people into the situations that you would like to see, not forcing them into the situations that you have determined. Then you're not in a story, you're reading a book.
Yeah. Good.
With dice. Anyway.
Yeah. The game master should build the world and set the dice rolling, but let the players figure out where they're going to go.
Yeah. And if you have an overarching theme, fantastic. And a really good DM can kind of keep people in that theme without them wandering too far. Otherwise, then it becomes less of a game and more of just a let's hang out and roll dice. And there's certain games, I don't even remember what they were about. We played a campaign a year ago, and I couldn't even tell you what the goal was. I know we didn't win, but I don't even know if we lost. Did we just stop playing? Did we die? I think we died in the sewer, like, alone, because like, I didn't know what was going on. Nobody knew what was going on. We're like, okay, we've officially completed the campaign, and while there are like epilogues, we don't need them. So I think the
Yeah, I think that
Yeah.
was the Waterdeep. You guys had like a ton of fun in the first half, and the official story, because it's still from a book. I had just like taken the one section, been like, no, we're just gonna run with this for as long as I feel like, and we get to like a certain point, and you've got to like, okay, we're going to have to progress and go back into the book. And as soon as I hit that next part of the actual official story, like everybody checked out. Like, no,
you,
we were having fun
yeah,
before. Why'd you have to ruin it with like bullshit?
we got cocky, and you took off the training wheels and watched us just drive that sucker right off a cliff. And I mean, don't get me wrong, we were having fun the whole time. Like, even as we're flying through the air off the cliff, getting ready to crash and burn, we're still like, yeah, bitches. But we knew where it was going at that point. It's like we've beaten this world up to death. We've been everywhere in the city that we give a crap about. Sure, did we scratch on 1% of the Waterdeep world? Probably, maybe 1-2%. But did we need to see the other 98%? No,
No.
we needed to drive that car off a cliff.
Yeah. Okay. So, for games, do you think visuals are important? You know, fantasy
Absolutely.
maps, big pictures of what the monsters look like.
Yeah, and especially online, because you cannot. It's really hard to inflect a world or be a proper storyteller. Even if we have cameras on, it still would be very difficult. You need the visuals to allow for to assist in people filling in the gaps. Because you can tell people we're in the woods and there's some trees and stuff like that, but everyone's going to have a different idea what it looks like, and that's okay. But it's when you start like losing touch of what you're doing because you have nothing to base it on. You're all of a sudden like, well, it could be this, and then somebody without that visual, you could say one thing as a DM, and it would just absolutely destroy the universe I built in my head. You're like, oh, did I not tell you it's nighttime? It's like I can just hear the glass breaking and the whole world crumbling to bits because what I had in my head that I've been building up is now so like diametrically opposed to what you have built that now everyone's on a different page and we don't know what's going on.
Yeah,
It's
you're
usually
walking
not
across that field that you have in the woods, and suddenly I say that you stepped in the bubbling brook that passes through it. And you're like, where the hell did that come from? Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be perfect, but the visuals help me to know where things are in relation to each other. Because that's the only thing. It doesn't matter what the visual looks like. I just need to know I'm that blob over there, and somebody else is that blob over there, and I need to stab that blob with whatever I have in my hand. So just show me where the blobs are and let me go from there.
Well, I can imagine it also helps, especially on the online, for those long periods of time between your turns, right?
Oh yeah,
Because you're sitting there and you're like, we're definitely in this alehouse, and you come back and you're like, what the hell's going on?
I left to get a sandwich, came back. Where my phone at? Yeah, I get it.
So I think, I like visuals. I spent a lot of time on a lot of those pictures, getting your maps together and stuff like that. I can understand that we probably need to do a little bit better with, like putting some sort of marker around the enemies so that they're easier to identify. And I think we can do that.
If I zoom in far enough and remember what everything is, I'll be like, oh, that is an enemy, not a chair.
Yeah.
But
it happens all the time, and not it happens all the time, and it's not just you. Is that some of the enemies, they get lost in the background, and I think that sometimes putting like a circle, like when you've got a minifigure, like a little plastic one, they've got like little base. It's a little circle they sit on. That circle from overhead is super important because it's like, this is a guy. This isn't just background. This is coming out of that. It breaks a little the immersion, but it's
the chair is stabbing me. Why am I being stabbed by a chair?
Yeah.
Oh, the chair has two swords. Oh crap. I get it.
Yeah. All right. So, story, something that's well designed, builds a decent world, gives you an interesting thing to do, but lets you choose your own thing. And visuals should be there to help you understand where you're at, what you're doing, and to bring you back to the moment in between those lengthy turns, because you are playing, as we have said, from 2 states over.
True. For now,
Okay, cool. Is there anything else that you'd like to add today?
No, absolutely not. Because if
Fantastic.
I am given that question, they'd be like, sure.
You just keep going for like hours.
Yeah, we would. I don't socialize enough, so yeah.
Well, I said I'm coming out to see you in a couple of weeks here. I've booked my Verbo. But John, I want to thank you very much for coming on and talking with me today about this. I appreciate hearing your opinions on these different systems, and knowing that people are enjoying the games that I work on. Right? It's fun for me to tell the stories, but if it's not fun for the people playing them, it loses some of that.
I can definitely tell that. And that's part of the reason I don't DM that often, just because if I feel like I'd be disappointing people, like not just like, oh, eventually we're always going to disappoint somebody. No, I feel like I would just start off and just immediately disappoint somebody. And then as time goes on, there'd be like nobody left that I have not disappointed. And if I just didn't have the energy, I'd just go downhill from there. So, yeah.
I don't think that's true. I don't think you'd disappoint somebody with a story.
Not with the story. And I'm sure people would have fun with it. I can't wait to murder mystery the hell out of everybody. But it's still, that's what I feel. Like that's what happened. And too much. God, I love pressure. I love working under pressure. I don't feel shame. I don't feel embarrassment. I'd say anything to anybody with a modicum not giving a crap. And yet, when it comes to the game, like you guys deserve somebody and something that's well put together in the game. And I think I am much better as support than I am with being a leader. I was always a leader because I was tall, and now it's stupid as it was. I was tall and I was loud, and people just followed me wherever I went. And now I'm far away, and it's like none of my skills come in handy anymore. So I'm just
we're all the same size
people.
on the computer screen, huh?
Right? Yeah, I can't intimidate anybody. Not that I did on purpose, but it happened. So anyway, I know you're doing your thing, and I can't wait till you come out to visit. Let me know if you want me to pick up, grab like tickets to the Cedar Point or anything you guys want to go to. Let me know, and I'll grab us all tickets for the family.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, well, it's been good having you. I look forward to talking to you again soon, and I'll see you on Tuesday. If you have anything you'd like to ask us regarding this topic or another that might be near and dear to your heart, please feel free to drop us a line at levelupyourgamingpodcast@gmail.com or head on over to facebook.com/levelupyourgaming. The podcast is also available on YouTube, so check that out, like and subscribe. As always, if you liked what we talked about today or think someone you know would benefit from our worldly advice, please share this with them. We are here to help and would love to hear from you. This is not the end, but I've got nothing more to say. Bye.